How was it to not have a life science degree or background? It's quite uncommon, especially for life science VCs.
Right, I have to look very hard to find people who fit the mold, but they do exist.
Not even talking about you not having PhDs,
That's right, or MD PhDs. There was an effort within our group to map the ADC landscape. Obviously, it's a very hot space, but especially in these hot areas, you need to ensure that you find something that is truly differentiated. And everybody has to learn all the time. If you don't like that, there is no room for you in fast-paced investment environments like biotech because there's just so much innovation going on.
Bienvenue to a new episode. I'm your host, Philip, and in this show, I'm interviewing the best Europeans in biotech to help you grow. The biotech industry wouldn't exist without venture capital. The best venture capital firm in Europe is EQT Life Sciences, ex-LSP. So I went to Munich to catch up with partner Christoph Broja. He has recently become partner of the firm. I've known the firm for almost a decade, but it's actually the first time I meet with Christoph offline. We talked about his lessons until becoming a partner at the firm. We also talked about investing in hot areas such as ADCs or obesity and the importance of being curious. So here's my conversation with Christoph, and please hit the like or follow button if you're enjoying it. All right, welcome to the show, Christoph.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks for having me.
It's cool. And I heard it's your first time you do a podcast. So
It is, and you're probably the only one who could convince me to do a podcast, especially because I follow your work. I love it, and I see who you have on. So it's a great pleasure.
That's cool. I want to start with you becoming recently partner at EQT, which is great news. Congrats on that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how is it going since?
It's been going well. I mean, they kind of put you on the test track already a couple of months before, right? Observe you with quite a lot of vetting from all sides, and you kind of get into the partner role well before somebody gives you a call and says that you've been promoted. But it's great. No, it feels fantastic. I'm now part of the group that's making ultimately the investment decision on the IC, but also I'm getting more and more involved in sort of building our organization, thinking about hiring and so forth, and getting more exposure also to the broader EQT organization. So I'm really enjoying it.
That's cool. On the pedaling a bit back or a bit background, I think as also you. It's your first time on the podcast. I like to give more context also for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you studied in Germany, and then you started working here, moved to London. Can you walk me a bit through it, and what were some of your lessons there?
Absolutely. I'm from Germany. I studied business and finance here. Always wanted to go into investment. Really trying to tease out what drives investment performance, and so I started my career in an investment firm called Haniel, a family-based investment firm, and they had some healthcare exposure as well. They were owner of one of the largest healthcare wholesalers in Europe. But really, I started getting closer to biotech when moving to London to work for the Bertarelli family, which is a family that has over 3 generations built Serono before they sold it to Merck. Hugely successful. Financially, it's a very entrepreneurial. Yeah, it's something like that. Swiss franc at the time, So they were thinking where to deploy capital, and at the time, the decision was made to set up a fund in Boston called Gurnet Point Capital, around Chris Wiebacher and a team of operator investors. And I was lucky enough to be really part and parcel of that effort. Moved to Boston with my family, and really that's when I started investing in life sciences full time about 10 years ago, and it stuck with me.
How was it? How was it to not have a more life science degree or background? It's quite uncommon, especially for life science VCs.
Right. I have to look very hard to find people who fit the mold. But they do.
Not even talking about not having PhDs,
That's right. That's right. Or MD PhDs. No, it's exactly right. I think, look, in career planning, at least for me, it was true. There's always some serendipity, and then you make conscious decisions along the way. It was certainly serendipity that I started in an investment firm that had a deep passion for biotech, the Serrano founders. And I made the conscious decision at the time to stay there and focus, because where private investing has moved over time is really focus and value add to the companies that they invest in. So for me, it was really learning from scratch when I moved to Boston what biotech is all about, drug development, IP, CMC, and learning this from people who come from the industry, both pharma. Chris, obviously a great pharmaceutical CEO. Exactly, Sanofi CEO.
Now Biogen CEO.
Now he's at Biogen, exactly. Obviously, wealth of experience in how to run big pharma companies, how they think about commercial opportunities, etc. But he also brought in people alongside him who came more from the biotech arena. That's really where I learned to look behind the curtain of the financial numbers to see what is actually driving investment performance and risk. And I really enjoyed that. We had a fantastic team, deployed about 2 billion into life sciences companies, and then moved back to Europe, and then the opportunity came up to join EQT. I actually think not having a science background, to maybe answer your question a little bit more directly, I see this as my superpower, actually. Because it allows me to take a step back and really think like an investor, meaning, how does this make money?
Yeah.
And what is the level of risk here? And I feel that
versus being attached to the science, and
exactly getting enamored with the science, and therefore I think it's a nice complement to the team. I mean, we obviously have a fantastic team of people with scientific or medical training. I'm the exception, and you couldn't build a life science venture fund with people that just look like me. But it's helpful to every now and then have somebody who asks the question, so what? Right? It's great that you get this receptor binding, that you can do this and that with your new technology, but so what? What are we actually doing? Because at the end of the day, biotech is not about writing scientific papers. It's about developing medicines for patients and making a financial return for our investors, right? So it really helps me to stay cool-headed, to follow the data, follow the numbers, follow the evidence, and I think that's also a helpful contribution to the team.
Yeah, that's good. And you sound like also very curious / like meticulous on learning. Like,
absolutely, you have to. Yeah. I mean, that's true for everybody, right? Even for folks who started their career coming through it from the academic side and the scientific background. Everybody has to learn all the time. If you don't like that, there's no room for you in fast-paced investment environments like biotech, because there's just so much innovation going on. And absolutely, you have to be intellectually curious all the time to learn new things. And I really, really enjoy that. It never gets boring.
That's cool. That's good. It's very inspiring, actually. I have to say also, I mean, I have a bioengineering background, but I always like more the investment world. I started doing a bit of investing as well now, more in publicly listed biotechs. But it's quite, I mean, but at the same time, I'm not like PhD, MD or whatever, like super deep into the science. So it's always inspiring to see like different paths as well.
Absolutely. And it forces you to have a very collaborative approach. I rely on my team and the folks with with deep scientific expertise to really dig into the detail of mechanism of action, how it works, and how it compares to others. I think that's also what I try to encourage within the team, that we collaborate closely. But equally, I'm also challenging folks on the commercial opportunity, and where we are right now in biotech. I think there's a strong product focus. What is the positioning of a certain product? What are the cost of goods of this product compared to others? I think that's a question that
It's like advanced therapies, I guess.
that's precisely right. Yeah. And is there going to be a commercial opportunity here? Yeah, I'm usually the first who goes to ask these kinds of questions.
Yes, that's good. I think we can dig deeper into positioning. Maybe last question. You said you moved back to Europe, back to Germany. What was the decision making there? Like,
Yeah, I think so. My wife and I obviously took the plunge, moved over to the US, lived there for 5 years, and we really enjoyed our time in Boston.
amazing city, although it's
Absolutely amazing city, absolutely. But I think long term, we saw ourselves more in Europe. We felt there's a maybe more a cultural fit with how people live their lives here. So eventually we wanted to come back to Europe. And that was really at the time, we had to decide, do we want to go for the green card or not? Also, my daughter was getting into an age where it would have become much more difficult to move after she enters secondary school. And so, we went back first to London, actually, where we loved London. And we lived there for about 5 years before we went to Boston. But then this opportunity came up, and I got the call from my partner JR. Do you want to join us? We just, there's a lot of growth opportunities for us, but you have to move back to Germany. And for me, coming back to
Amsterdam, I guess. But
yeah, exactly. I know in this case it was actually Germany, building the team here. For us, it was getting closer to home. Munich is a fantastic city.
Especially when it's sunny like this.
It's actually Boston weather. It's usually quite crisp outside with blue skies and sunshine, and it's amazing quality of life.
Yeah, sounds. I mean, I finished my studies in Boston for a year, and I had similar. I mean, not 5 years, but 1 year. I had a similar feeling, and a lot of Europeans I meet there, they have similar challenges, and it's amazing that you had the opportunity as well to come back, because I know a lot of Europeans in Boston, especially, or in the US. After a few years, you've built your network, everything, and it's hard. Sometimes harder and harder to come back, but you don't get the same level of opportunities.
Absolutely. Especially once your children go to secondary school, build their relationships, it gets a lot harder for them to move and adapt. But my children were still young, and they adapted quite well.
That's cool. Talking to moving to more to equity. I mean, what's pretty cool about you as well is that, as you said on the podcast, so it got some guests, and I just, when preparing and talking to you, I realized you were invested in Cardior on the board, and you invested in Tubulis, which Dominic and Claudia were on the show before, which is pretty cool. And both are like, I mean, at least so far, at least Claudia did a amazing exit. So how, like, I'm curious on your end, like how I'm always I like how the investment came about. Like, what's the story behind the investment? Maybe we can start with Cardior.
Absolutely, yeah. So Cardior was actually a company that was already in the LSP portfolio at the time. JR and Karen, who actually now moved to work for MSD venture fund. They originally did the investment in 2017, I believe. But then when I joined, immediately they placed me on the board, it was fantastic. I was really stunned to see that kind of quality of biotech company in Hanover of all places, right? But then you learn that actually Hanover has a pretty prolific medical university and medical center associated with it. And you meet people like Thomas Thum, really scientific entrepreneurs who are crafty and entrepreneurial, want to build something. It was a fantastic ride. We had a great dynamic at the board, great colleagues. Set the company up for success in executing a phase 2 study in post-MI heart failure. And then, of course, the offer came from Novo, and we had to manage that quite carefully because it came at a time where, typically you see transactions happening post phase 2, right? And this was at a time where we were in the middle of a phase 2. So we had to ensure that there's a lot of momentum within the deal, and Novo came through, and we're all happy with the E30 RF, and that the terms were right. Yeah, which I'm obviously not going to talk about. No, it was a good deal for everybody involved, and we're obviously continuing to keep our fingers crossed that there's a future for this product, and Novo is probably the best company to pick up this asset and actually bring it to patients.
I remember, and for people curious, they can check out the interview with Cardior, which was a great conversation as well. And I challenged her a bit on the timing and on the return. And what I remember also on the momentum, as you said, or the synergies with Novo, I remember she mentioned they would like launch additional phase 2s, additional indications like almost right away, which is
Absolutely
quite, I mean, it's not rare in biotech deals, but it's not like that common that it's like announced on the day of the deal or that it starts like
That's exactly right. And of course, in cardiovascular, studies become very large very quickly as you move towards phase 2 and then into phase 3. And if you want to really, raise the value of this modality, I think you need to invest a lot into later stage trials in multiple indications. And that's exactly what Novo is hopefully going to do. And what's somewhat how do I say is somewhat interesting is that the person who signed the term sheet is actually somebody who I used to work with at Gurnet Point as well, Dave Moore, who's now president for Novo in the US and SVP of business development. So yeah, we had a chat afterwards, and it was quite the coincidence.
That's cool. Biotech is really a small world.
Small world, small industry.
Really small world. We can talk about this about the how small the world is. Maybe on Tubulis, just to I remember when we had a quick call before the recording, you told me like we looked at all basically ADCs globally, and Tubulis really stood out, like very differentiated. Can you expand a bit on like what makes them like so unique or to your eyes? Not just the science, I guess, also on the
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So there was an effort within our group to map the ADC landscape. Obviously, it's a very hot space, but especially in these hot areas, you need to ensure that you find something that is truly differentiated. And so there was an effort made to identify the top companies in that space. Really, also on a molecular level, benchmarking different ADCs and what is the secret sauce of these firms, and how do they compare, and do they have IP or did they just license different components? And Tubulis really stood out because it combines a few aspects that we really like, which is they own their technology platform, the P5 platform in particular, but then also looking at the degrader antibody conjugates with the Alco5 platform. They own the IP around that, but at the same time, they were pursuing it in targets that were not too crowded, kind of a Goldilocks type of target space, if you will, where when you look at the number of programs in the ADC space, I mean, a lot going after HER2 or some of the more validated targets, which may be more de-risked, but then you get back to, okay, but how are you going to compete in this space, which is going to be very crowded? And then you have the completely unvalidated targets, where maybe you only have one company pursuing a completely novel biology, which is very exciting if it works, but tends to carry a little bit more risk. Tubulis was going after targets where others had tried but failed. And so we could build an investment thesis on, well, can you actually fix the issues that others have experienced? So we did a lot of reference calls with KOLs and people who worked on these targets previously to figure out what were the issues, why have others failed in this space, and was it related to the target and target-mediated toxicity, or was it related to the ADC construct? And the picture really came together and was unanimous that the targets were good targets. People were very excited about those targets, but the ADC construct was the problem. In particular, the stability and homogeneity of the ADC constructs, and that is exactly what Tubulis is solving. As Tubulis has figured out a way to design these linkers in a way that they are very, very stable in circulation, but once they reach the tumor and get internalized, they cleave off and have a nice bystander effect. So so this was the hypothesis. And then in addition to that, that was backed by very robust preclinical data package, where they also benchmarked versus the standard of care. And it was really extremely compelling. So you had this combination of validated targets, others have failed. Now you have a technology that could unlock the potential of these targets. And then you layer on top of that a team like Dominic and Jonas and his cruciferous, which is just super impressive. Especially the fact that Dominic has brought in people who have decades of experience and brought them around him, who are now driving this organization forward. Really impressed us. And then we found some extremely like-minded investors with Nextech and Fraser and Deep Track to build this syndicate with us. And now we're off to the races in the clinic, treating patients, and very excited for what's next for the company.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, people can check out the interview. It's it was also
it's one to watch. Yeah,
it's a good one to watch. Yeah, what you just said struck me on, like, you were mapping the whole ADC space and talking to all the KOLs. I'm always like impressed, but at the same time, I'm never sure like how in detail does like a VC go on the due diligence / on the like accuracy. But it sounds like from what you say, it's like a lot of work.
It
To
takes
know the whole space.
And you will find investors with sort of different approaches. Some are maybe a little bit more momentum driven, jumping on themes and sort of hoping for a quick exit. And then there are others who do deep diligence, and there are a lot of those as well. And we probably more in that camp. We take our time to really ask the probing questions across not just the science, but also the IP, the CMC, the commercial viability. We're not just speaking to scientific KOLs, but we also interview pharma to see where it would fit into their pipelines and how they are thinking about sort of the next wave coming through. And then, you go to through all the data. Have they used the right models? What is the construct of their antibodies? Is there a reason to believe? What is the sort of the biological reason to believe that they have the better mousetrap? Is it FC silenced? Yes or no? What have others done? What kind of toxins are they using? We have a structural biologist on staff and 3 PhD oncology. So it's a lot of work. And then you pull together a diligence package, and you're actually working with the company at that point to attract other investors, and we exchange work and so forth. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. That's because I feel like I also the size of the round makes, I guess, justifies a bigger due diligence. I guess you guys were the first one to kind of lead the round and and attract the co-investors as well. So I guess you're taking more of the risk, and like
we worked hand in hand with Nextech, who's also an oncology focused fund, to co-lead this round, and really also exchange notes from our work, the IP work, for example. We did that together, right? Because that always costs quite a lot of money. But we certainly pooled together the remainder of the syndicate, the term sheet, and then got the existing syndicate on board as well.
And you were leading all of this investment, like
That's right.
Yeah. So it's your first full. That's your full investment.
Exactly. And I worked obviously hand in hand with a deal team, with my colleagues John, Philip, and Max. That's usually how we set up, sort of a partner, a backup partner, and 2 or 3 more junior members of the team, and then we present it to the whole partnership.
So, okay. Yeah, that's. I'm curious on that approach, and this makes me think about before coming here. I watched a video of René on the Biostock talking. One thing that struck me and that resonates here, that takes my brain here, is like he said, you're looking at 2,000 opportunities per year, and you invest in like 10 or around 10, which is like crazy selective. And on top of looking at 2,000 opportunities, you probably look at all the spaces possible, which I'm wondering basically if that's the best approach for life science VC. I mean, you said some people have a bit different philosophy, but I guess for you guys, as with the resource you have in the fund, you're in a position where you can basically do it.
Yes.
So it all aligns basically.
It does. I mean, you have to have pretty rigorous filters. You can't spend an equal amount of time on all of these 2,000s, of course, and so there are quick kills in terms of it's just not where we invest. Either it's stage related or it's geography related. It's just not a fit, and then you quickly whittle it down to a more manageable number of opportunities, and then we have a fantastic team of associates and VPs who really have managed to get very good at sorting out this deal flow, identifying the killer questions early on, maybe doing 1 or 2 KOL calls, or talking to other investors to quickly get to a point where we can jointly say whether or not we want to prioritize it and spend any time on it.
That makes sense. Talking about the fund, actually, I saw I think the most recent fund was LSP 7, the venture fund, which was €1 billion, and to my knowledge is still the biggest at this venture fund in Europe.
It's a bit semantics, yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, there's now this differentiation between venture and growth. You could also argue it's all sort of early stage and late stage venture, but we don't strive to be the biggest. We want to have the best reputation in the market. So it's sizable. It allows us to put meaningful capital to work into the most promising companies in Europe. And we're sort of very happy how it's going so far and where we have placed some of our investments.
That's cool. For the audience, for context as well on the venture funds, I mean, I think one that has been very successful recently, and you do co-investment with them, is Fabian.
That's right.
But I think their venture fund was a bit smaller. I think it was like 890 million euros, at least on October 2024. But then they have a growth fund, which is a bit larger. I guess that's maybe what you're referring to as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can tell at least from talking to research in the industry, definitely LSP stands out. LSP and EQT stands out as definitely in the top, if not the best. I remember one like partner Bandera told me, "Oh, LSP as a number for us, the number one." Like,
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. But LSP has been around for over 30 years, and they have invested in over 150 companies. And I think over that time, you learn a thing or two about how to assess the risk, because ultimately, and that may also be a little bit the difference to the private equity world, we're underwriting risks, and it's always a judgment call. It's never really black or white, and a matter of pricing. It's more, am I comfortable with the level of risk I'm taking here? And do I see an opportunity to develop this in a way that creates a lot of value for the fund and ultimately for our clients?
So that's good. Yeah. And I was there. And at the end of the day, I mean, even especially in European life science VCs, the competition is not that crazy high, and it's more like a lot of co-investments, and it's a small world, as we said.
It's a small world. It's an ecosystem. Yeah. If you look at the capital required to move all these companies forward that are cropping up in the European biotech ecosystem, you need to pool your resources also on the investor side, and nobody has a patent on good ideas here. So we absolutely love to collaborate with peers in the industry, both the earlier investors who take more risk on the early stage side, and some of the peers who invest more on the later stage side, where you need to pool your capital and resources to build European champions.
And bringing you mentioned Deep Track. I mean, bringing US investors, larger funds, like larger later stage. That's good. I just wanted to mention also for the audience. I mean, I think I have the two other funds with Forbin that really also stand out in Europe are Sofinova and Abingworth, which also both have been around for almost the same age as LSP, and were doing remarkably well as well. And they're both on the show as well, which is
for people curious. I saw that. No, absolutely no. And we know, of course, we know these groups very well. We meet them on a regular basis, exchange notes. It is a collaborative environment, and that's also our philosophy. We're very collaborative. We're not big ego type people. We like to work with our European peers and the US, because at the end of the day, if you take a step back, and maybe that's also the benefit of working for a group like EQT, life science venture capital is a product that you sell to your clients, which are LPs. And LPs, limited partners, they can invest in life science venture capital, or they can invest in oil and gas or infrastructure, or you name it. Like, so as an industry or as a product, we need to make sure that we are also attractive to our client base, and that requires collaboration and building great companies that ultimately can be very, very valuable, and where we can all make good returns, which makes us attractive as an asset class.
Yeah, no, that's good. And at the end of the day, if you think as an industry, that helps have more impact for patients. I mean, absolutely, which leads to return, but it's at the end of the day.
And when you talk about the European ecosystem, where we're still behind the US, of course, in terms of funds being able to write larger checks for later stage clinical development, that's also a reason why we need to work together with other funds to be able to shoulder together these kind of big ticket investments.
I was about to ask you, because I feel, from my experience little experience in the US, that there's definitely more competition between the funds.
Absolutely.
There.
Yeah.
In biotech or in tech in general.
Yeah.
You can.
No, that's also my sense, although there's also something called the Boston Biotech Mafia, and I'm sure there's a lot of collaboration also between funds. But it is also true that while the ecosystem and the number of companies in the US is much larger, there's also a lot more competition because there are more funds, very, very large funds, which you have a little bit less in Europe.
Yeah, that's yeah. And while we talk about geographies, I'm curious also what's your positioning with China. I mean, it's kind of at JPM. I feel like that was one of the hot topic. I feel like a lot of even European VCs have Chinese LPs now, or even some do like Chinese investment or licensed in assets. I think who was it? I think was it Fabian who did one big deal with it, or
Quite a few now.
in license like asset made a big.
Yeah, exactly. Now there are quite a few now.
How was your approach there? I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't really care where the innovation comes from. Come from China, Europe, or US. We're genuinely interested to fund the best science, no matter where it comes from, and we're quite encouraged with what we're seeing coming through the deal flow pipeline from China. The quality is very good. I think there was, I don't know whether it was 2022 or 23 was the first time where more assets got licensed from China into the US than the reverse. So clearly there has been a breaking point in innovation and licensing innovation out of China. Our approach is that we are very, very carefully monitoring the space. I think we saw about over 100 opportunities from China last year. Actually, not just China, but more broadly Asia. But China for sure has the largest quantity, also because of sort of the structural challenges that China is facing with respect to funding these biotechs.
And then
right now,
massive amount of money into biotech.
Exactly.
Like, I think, what was it, in 2023? I think also there was as much or more investment in China than all Europe together.
That's right. So you cannot ignore it. And we are not ignoring it. We're actively involved in numerous...
Just afterwards as well. That's yeah.
We're actively involved there in numerous discussions. And what's, again, a massive benefit that we have is we now have people on the ground, because EQT also acquired a manager called BPA now, EQT Private Capital Asia, one of the largest investment firms with offices all over Asia. And we're in active dialogue also with our colleagues on the ground there. We probably won't invest directly in China. We're also looking more at sort of the new co-model that now everyone is looking at, but we're extremely selective. So our approach would likely be to work together again with one or two other funds, find interesting assets, and then build a management team around that to develop these assets for the Western market, because typically the out licensor retains China rights.
That makes sense. And I mean, at the end of the day, you also have more expertise, even when you talk about management teams, having them in Europe or
That's right.
Europe, US, but even more Europe, I guess you have more connection, more everything. Like
Absolutely, we have a deep network of operators, of former operators that used to work at companies that we were invested in, that we could bring into these new cos, because ultimately somebody's going to have to push the assets forward and develop them, right? It's all about people. That's right.
Yeah, that's good. We talked about everything. I think I was about to ask you also on how is it going, the merger between LSP and EQT. I mean, you mentioned some of the benefits already. I'm curious if is there any downsides?
Any downsides apart from the annual compliance training that we now have is very rigorous.
And be careful what you say in the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sure you will help me and cut it out if I'm leaning too far out of the window. But No, look, I mean, for me, this is really a match made in heaven of two top-notch investment organizations with slightly different focus. EQT, now one of the premier private equity companies globally, not just in Europe, certainly the leader in Europe, but also one of the top players globally, with a deep focus on certain sectors, of which healthcare is probably their most important sector. So a deep commitment to the sector. But of course, it's a sector that is very complex, is driven by regulation, by commercial trends, but also to a lot of extent by innovation. And when you want to know what affects my mature companies, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, you need to look much earlier at what is coming through the innovation pipeline. And that's exactly where we come in, right? Because innovation is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. And so I think the EQT healthcare platform allows us to exchange knowledge both ways. What is coming through the innovation pipeline, what could be relevant for them at some point. Equally, we exchange network. EQT has an unbelievable network of industrial advisors, and these are typically very senior people and CEOs of large companies, which we have access to. And then, leveraging the broad infrastructure. We're sitting here in the Munich office. It's a very nice, very big office, and we have offices all around the world now. We're just at JP Morgan, and we took quite a few meetings in our San Francisco office from EQT. We have a big office in London. We have a very big office in New York, and we can use this as a team. We can offer this also to our portfolio companies or our peers in the industry if they need to crash somewhere. We offer office space, but beyond office space, of course, there's also the synergies you get by running the fund business, right? People in fundraising, people in IT, and so forth, which all of this allows us to really focus on our investments, and there I see massive synergies between the two groups.
Yeah, that's good, and I think that it was a bit of a trend. I saw that there was quite a few VCs who's exited, which Abingworth to Carlyle. There was Kurma to I forgot which private equity. Sophie Nova got Apollo went in. I didn't acquire, but they went in quite with a sizable chunk. I was curious to see how it evolved, but so far seems like it's pretty positive, and it's actually private equity is very hungry for investing in innovation in healthcare especially, and they're bringing quite a lot of capital in it.
So yeah, I think you're right. Although I do think there are differences between different groups, and coming back to the collaboration theme, what is really nice between LSP and EQT is a fit of culture. EQT doesn't just see the combination as adding another product that they can offer to LPs. They really see this as a way to become the leading healthcare investor in the world. So there's a lot of...
They are almost today.
They are already big, but it's...
I didn't know they were so big in healthcare specifically.
That's right. They have deployed over 100 billion between 2016 and 2023. And they will continue to be very active investing in healthcare and in the life sciences space.
A bit earlier, basically, than the current, or than some private equity who joined they were having to join 2-3 years.
That's right.
Ago. Okay, they were. That's good. I guess they also build a very good position. When you're early and when everyone joins after you, usually it's a pretty good place to be, I guess.
That is right. Yeah, they certainly picked out the pearl.
That's good. Talking about picking pearls, one thing we said is also about we talked about trends. I'm curious on like, I mean, you mentioned a bit about ADCs, how you approach it, but how do you approach like another trend like obesity, like which was like super hot, super quickly? Do you have the same approach for all the like hot markets, or how do you like, how do you see it? I mean, how do you see obesity specifically, and how do you see like these hot trends? Like,
Yeah, no, I think if you look at areas that are attracting a lot of investment from pharma or from VCs, I think it behooves you to look into those very closely, especially if we're talking about gigantic new commercial opportunities like the new obesity drugs. Um, and so when you see these trends, you you start by putting together a landscape. So you're starting to talk to KOLs to really understand where the unmet need still lies, because we have GLP-1s now, right? And sometimes it's also quite counterintuitive. I just read an article the other day where pharma companies are trying to move a little bit away from a sole focus on weight loss, moving more towards the quality of weight loss and added benefits of drugs, right? So you need to be very mindful where sort of the commercial environment is also moving towards. And that's exactly what we're doing constantly. Also, we obviously get a lot of inbounds of opportunities. And we're talking to, I would say, a close group of maybe 2 or 3 KOLs on a regular basis to really try to understand how these treatments would eventually fit into the bigger picture of the treatment landscape. And sometimes it's a little bit unexpected what you find, right? We just invested in a company called Mosana Therapeutics, which is focusing on obstructive sleep apnea, which happens to also be related to patients who are obese. And this is going to be a somewhat tangential bet on sort of a market that is evolving. And I don't know if you followed, but Lilly got a label extension also for their obesity drug in an obstructive sleep apnea. So this is a market that is now developing, and we would be the first. This will be a nasal spray to cater to the same patient population. So it's going after a similar market, but it's not the same because, when you look at the obesity pipeline and you see out of the 100 or so programs that are coming through the pipeline, 80 or so are some version of another GLP-1. You do have to ask the question if you're going to have 80 GLP-1s on the market, right? And that is the answer to that is pretty clear.
and which one really captures the market share?
So having a very clear understanding of where the unmet need still lies, and then going and try to identify the companies that are trying to address those is how we navigate. It's the same in the ADC space, right? We talked about it, and then you look at the different components of the ADCs and see who's using the toxin that we believe is the most promising one at the time, and so forth.
Well, one thing I like also on the, especially, I mean, not equity and you guys specifically, I think probably most VC do, but it quite struck me. It was from a conversation with GR actually. I think it was in Vienna, and he told me like that's very focused on M&A more than IPOs. I guess very connected to how the European market is also structured. But also that you mentioned also earlier that you were really testing M&A and pharma appetite,
Yes.
like very deeply.
Yes.
Which I think in funds is common, but I'm not sure if it's that common to go that much in details. Can you expand a bit on that, on like why you focus so much on M&A versus like public listing, for example, and like, how you,
Yeah, I think it's that has always been a focus for LSP, is trying to understand who could ultimately buy this company and really advance it into late stage clinical trials and commercial. Because that's, I think the unwritten contract, the unwritten innovation model of biopharma, right? Where companies typically, if they generate very exciting data in a POC trial, pharma will look at it, or at least there is a belief that pharma could acquire this company at some point, which also oftentimes support a public market valuation of a company. But yeah, the way we go about it, the exit thesis is a fundamental part of our investment thesis. So before you even invest, you already think about how you sell the company again. The way to validate this is to look at pharma pipelines and see if they have gaps, and then talk to a couple of pharma BD people to see how they see the landscape shaping up, and also confirm the appetite for something like the product that you're backing by the time it's a little bit more de-risked, right? Because they
don't like too early stage.
They don't like too early stage, and that has always been the case, right? That's why the system works, where the VCs will take a little bit more risk upfront, building a portfolio, and then pharma is more than happy to pay substantially more for a more de-risked asset. So yeah, really supporting that exit thesis, trying to understand where the product can fit into the pharma pipeline, validating this with interviews with pharma BD teams and R&D teams is crucial to how we work. And by the way, also talking to equity analysts and bankers who are an important source of intel on how pharma thinks, because they dabble in this sort of on a daily basis.
I like that. Yeah. And how do you, in what I'm curious also on this is like, how do you match the timelines? Because some, BD pharma, they're like looking, obviously they look short term and long term, but some of them seems like more short term, or okay, we make a deal like now, and they look at the trend and like, okay, we want to all go into the same thing, and they can tell you one thing now, or we are really hot on this, but like, does it align with your timeline, which is like you invest and you exit like 5-7 years down the road? I guess like, how do you fit these timelines? Is it true that there's some?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I think if you are investing in a platform technology where you may not even know the indication you're going after, I think those pharma interviews may be less relevant, because you don't have really a product yet to talk about, right? But as you're moving towards later stages, clinical stage assets that conceivably could reach a value inflection points within the next 2 to 3 years, then I think it's much more useful to have these discussions.
Yeah.
So that's probably the approach. And to also sort of juxtapose M&A versus IPO, both are obviously very valuable, let's say, exit routes, although IPO, I'm sure you've heard this before, is not an exit, it's a financing. But it allows you then over time to get to liquidity. That's exactly right. And even there, I think oftentimes public market valuation is supported if people believe that this company could be acquired by a pharma. I think it's just a part and parcel. But that having been said, we're not buying companies to sell them. We're very much focused on building the best companies we can, and sometimes you have to also go a little bit against the grain. And even the pharma doesn't really know what they will want 3 to 4 years down the road, right? So you also gotta have to take some scientific risks or leap of faith, because you believe that there will be a place in the marketplace for a certain product in a certain indication.
That's good. And maybe on the trend as well. What one thing that comes to my mind is obviously, I mean, now you have quite a sizable amount of, I mean, at least dozens. I just did a top 25 biotechs in Europe, and I was quite struck actually that there were like basically 20 really biotechs that are over $1 billion valuation. Most of them listed, double listed Nasdaq. But I mean, now you have and some like Genmab and argenx and BioNTech, which are in the like 20-30 billion market cap, which is crazy. So that, I mean, how do you see, how do you look at this? Like, I mean, it seems to be there's quite a, and compared to 10 years ago, quite a like momentum and quite a sizable. Like,
I mean, it's hugely exciting to have.
they didn't exit before.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's hugely exciting. It's a great role model for up and coming CEOs, and we also connect our portfolio company CEOs to the leadership of these companies, whether it's Tim from argenx or folks at Merus, to sort of copy a little bit the playbook and prepare them for what's to come if they decide to go down the same path and do a Nasdaq listing. And we need those. We need those role models also for the broader innovation ecosystem in Europe. They're crucial because they're driving innovation in a certain area, hugely financially successful, but also from there, folks will leave those bigger companies to found their own companies and startups. So it's very encouraging to see that we still have some and an increasing number of champions. But of course, as you already alluded to, either they are dual listed or they go straight to Nasdaq, because unfortunately, we don't have good capital markets in Europe, which is unfortunate because, on paper, it's actually not that difficult. It wouldn't be that difficult to establish that, but the problem is that we are too fragmented in Europe. And so it's a natural move by boards and executive teams to want to list at Nasdaq, not because they need to be or want to be in the US, but it's because unfortunately we don't have the capital markets to support their liquidity needs.
Yeah, that's I heard and I mentioned it was Tim, at least from Abingworth, about the European Nasdaq, and like he said like, yeah, he has been hearing this for the last 20 years. So yeah, he's not sure he will see it cracked in his days. Like,
it's unfortunate.
But there's some motivation recently, at least. Like, I mean, I even heard Macron say, okay, we need like a European capital market. I mean, it's pretty like encouraging, at least, that there's even at the top level
that there's an understanding for
the motivation to take actions. Like,
yes, no, I think that would change quite a bit on how we think about the capital formation strategies for biotechs right now,
especially for biotechs at the end of the day, because one national market is just too small.
It's too small, but it's not just the size; it's also the capital market rules, where at least in Germany, for a growth stage company, they can raise a low percentage of their market cap.
But well, for this, there is some
and that just doesn't work. If you can only raise enough capital to get through the next 4 or 5 months of cash burn, that's not a very attractive proposition. Whereas in the US, these limitations do not exist. And so, I'm very hopeful that policymakers will listen. There has also been the Draghi report and others who have pointed out some weaknesses. And I think we need to work on those in Europe and come together to solve these structural disadvantages. And that will be even more important today than it maybe has been a couple of months ago even.
It's a good way to finish on a note of optimism on the train industry. I think we could talk way more about the industry, but I want to finish, and I'm seeing the time also, finish with a quick fire, which just quick questions. Your answer was like a one sentence answer. One advice to young life science professionals who want to go into venture.
Be intellectually curious and follow the data.
What's on top of your mind at the moment?
Preparing the strategy meeting for next week. Sorry, I didn't have anything more exciting to say.
What's your favorite biotech book?
It's the biography of Henry Temir, founder of Genzyme. Hugely inspirational book, which I also sent to some of the portfolio company CEOs because it's extremely inspirational.
I read it already twice and I love this book. One mistake you made in the past 12 months?
I didn't say no often enough, and now I have a lot of work on my desk that I have to deliver on.
That's good. Last one new habit you adopted recently.
Say that again, sorry.
One new habit you recently adopted.
Take time to give feedback. Maybe that comes with the partner role.
You need it. Yes. Great. Thanks a lot, Christoph. Amazing conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. No, I really appreciated it and hope we can do this again.
I'm impressed by Christoph's path, especially without a degree in life sciences. I'm also impressed by the clarity of his investment thesis and his low ego attitude. If you have enjoyed this episode, please hit the like, follow, or review button. Any of these actions would help us a lot to give access to more people to the show. If you want to go even further, you can make a donation via the PayPal link in the description. Again, big appreciation. If you want to see similar videos, we have a lot of them on our channel, so please feel free to check it out. I would also be curious to hear what you think. So if you could leave a comment wherever you are or shoot me an email at Philip@Flot.bio. All right, thanks for staying to the end and catch you in the next episode.